It was the unlikeliest of UK chart wars. Two versions of the theme tune to a 1960s sexy Mondo movie battling it out in the top 40 in 1977. But that's exactly what happened thanks to a hit TV show and record executives with an eye for the main chance. Forget Rod Stewart versus the Sex Pistols. This was the year's real struggle for chart supremacy and the hearts and minds of the public. In 1968, Piero Umiliani composed the song, if it can be called a song, Mah Na Mah Na, as part of the soundtrack for the film Sweden, Heaven and Hell, an Italian mockumentary that set out to explore the sexual freedoms and outrageous behaviour that Sweden was then leading the way with. Alongside Denmark, Sweden had been amongst the first nations to legalise pornography and was noted for its liberal attitudes and fresh-faced, blonde-haired girls who were allegedly unencumbered by Victorian morality. As hard as it seems to believe now, given the country's hardline attitudes to sex work, well into the 1980s, Swedish was a byword for saucy promiscuity in the UK. The track originally accompanied a scene set around a mixed sauna, and its bouncy nature and nonsense lyrics, good in any language, made it the standout piece from the soundtrack, a typical slice of candy floss lounge music. It was released as a single in various countries, credited to Mark IV, a manufactured name for a fake band made up of anonymous session musicians. The track was a minor hit in the USA, but a cover version, by the aptly named The Great Unknowns, vanished without trace in the UK. However, the track quickly slipped into the library music world and would become something of a staple for TV shows like The Benny Hill Show, where it was used several times as a backing track for his sketches, and as the theme tune to the Red Skelton show in America. By 1976, it might well have been a forgotten bit of background music had it not met its destiny when it was performed as a musical skit on the very first episode of The Muppet Show. The Muppets had already performed the song in 1969 on Sesame Street, but The Muppet Show was an altogether more mainstream entertainment series, produced in the UK by ATV, and an immediate global hit upon first broadcast. The manic Muppet version of the song was a highlight of the show, its nonsensical absurdity and catchiness making it an immediate hit with viewers. The huge success of The Muppet Show meant that a soundtrack album of the songs performed on the show, by the Muppets themselves, not their celebrity guests, was inevitable, and in 1977 the first Muppet Show LP appeared. It was a huge success, hitting number one on the album charts in the UK where Muppet fever was rampant, and spawned a couple of hit singles. The first of these was Halfway Down the Stairs, a cutesy poem by Kermit the Frog's nephew Robin, not even a famous Muppet, based on a poem by A. Milne that had been adopted into song form by Harold Fraser Simpson. It's a charming enough track, but it hardly seems the sort of thing that you would expect to fly up the charts. However, it did just that thanks to the B-side. For reasons that will forever remain a mystery, Pi Records chose to put Mah Na Mah Na on the flip side of the single rather than have it as the lead track. But no one was fooled. People quickly sussed out that their favourite Muppet number was on the B-side and rushed out to buy the single, propelling it to number 7 in the UK singles chart. Though of course on the top 40 rundown and Top of the Pops it was always Halfway Down the Stairs that was featured, much to the frustration of, well, everyone really. It's possible that one or two people bought the record because they loved the gentle ballad by a juvenile frog, but all the kids I knew were only interested in the B-side. Of course, this might have been a cunning plan by Pi rather than a terrible blunder. By putting the track on the flip, they ensured that people would have to buy the record if they wanted to hear it. Radio stations and TV broadcasters were sticking with the A-side. Nevertheless, it felt like a mad blunder, and Pi's mistake allowed others to swoop in. Sensing an opportunity that might not have existed had the record been the Muppets A-side, EMI rush-released the original track, now solely credited to Umiliani, as a single a month before the Muppets version was ready, and it entered the UK charts at number 38 on the 24th of April 1977. The next week, it had risen to number 23, then reached number 15 before finally peaking in 8th place on May 22nd, the same week that the Muppets version entered the chart. The Muppets single would eventually reach number 7, and at one point both singles were at number 8, The Muppets, and number 9, Umiliani, while the track managed to be in the top 23 times, twice in the singles chart, once the album chart, at the start of June 1977. Much of the country was distracted by the Sex Pistols' battle to hit number 1 with God Save the Queen at the time, but this is surely just as fascinating a slice of chart history. Sadly, because the Muppets version was a B-side, we never got to fully appreciate the battle during the chart rundowns. Back-to-back versions in the Sunday evening Top 40 show or on Top of the Pops would have been glorious. Arguments continue to rage about which is the best version. At the time, most kids preferred the more anarchic version by the Muppets, but Umiliani's track has an easy-listening charm that's almost the definition of 1960s Europop, and is perhaps the less gimmicky of the two, and so possibly has a longer shelf life. I think we can say that both versions have their charms though, and it's fantastic to look back and remember how both were sitting in the top 10 at the same time, and how the theme tune to a 1960s sex film became a beloved children's favourite without anyone seeming to notice. These are both things that I suspect will never happen again, more's the pity. So which version of Mah Na Mah Na is your favourite? Let us know in the comments. I'll be doing more on the dominant sound of 1977, which is probably not what you think it is, in a later video, so if you haven't already subscribed to the Overlooked Hotel, now is probably a good time to do so. And hit the alert bell so you don't miss that or any of our other videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.